Ever feel like everyone around you is acting like they're wearing masks, pretending to care, pretending to be real, but something always feels off? I know that feeling. I've seen people smile in your face while hiding knives behind their back. But here's the twist. Once you learn to read between the lines, to decode the small cues, the way they speak, the way they pause, you start to see the truth. And once you see it, you can never go back. Today, I will demonstrate the precise method of interpreting people like a lie detector. And once you learn it, you'll never look at people the same way again. Let me tell you, the tell me more strategy is similar to having a superpower, but without the gaudy outfit or cap. Nobody can, anybody understands that you're using it. It's simple yet compelling. When someone is passionately sharing their story, just step back, stay calm, and don't interrupt. Please share your thoughts or arguments with them using just 3 brief words. Further information: years ago, I discovered that I was ready to debate friends about whether pineapple belongs on pizza, but then something clicked. I simply grinned and said, "Tell me more about what happened next," instead of engaging in a debate, which was crazy. They began by discussing pizza, but soon they were revealing our early recollections of family meals, the foods they enjoyed, and even an odd explanation for their childhood dislike of pineapple. It wasn't just about pizza anymore. Thistle Words is a comprehensive examination of their inner world. People tend to be less defensive when they feel heard, and they don't feel the need to defend themselves or dispute back. They wind up disclosing far more than they intended, and you establish a secure space where they are at ease enough to let down their typical defenses and may believe they may say they are merely engaging in conversation, but in truth, they are disclosing their concerns and motivations. Unknowingly, they realize their fears and even their hopes. Trick in business meetings with friends. Even when there were obviously dubious individuals there, during a negotiation, I once just stated my position without advancing my goal. Tell me more. By the end of the negotiation, the opposite party had shared their complete plan. They essentially handed me the keys to their kingdom, describing why they were desperate for a deal, and all I did was listen. It seemed almost as simple, but the real deal is that this process is merely a strategy to win a debate or obtain more information without debating. In a world where people talk quickly but listen slowly, connect with me, this approach becomes a means of understanding people more deeply. It compels you to step outside of your ego and refrain from preparing your next words. You must step outside of your ego, stop preparing your next words, and sincerely consider the viewpoints of others when you ask them to share. When they explain themselves without passing judgment, you give them the unique gift of genuinely hearing them. By doing so, you develop understanding, trust, and occasionally even healing in that instant. This method embodies a fundamental principle of Stoic empathy, which is to observe without attachment. When you are just observing, you are comprehending the conversation without attempting to control or influence it. While maintaining composure, it's important to see people, not just read them, for their genuine selves and giving them the freedom to do so. So the next time you're in a discussion of whether it's a friendly exchange, a compromise, or even a contentious argument, try using the tell me more strategy. You'll be astounded by how much more people divulge and how much deeper the conversation gets, and how simple it is to truly comprehend things without ever exerting yourself, going beyond simply winning during the discussion. You'll see that this method creates genuine human ties based on respect and sincere curiosity. It is the key to truly seeing and connecting with others, discovering more about yourself and observing how they treat others with less respect. Position. If you truly want to understand someone's character, look beyond how they treat you and consider how they treat those they view as inferior to them. This type of observation is quite contentious since, let's face it, it exposes an unpleasant reality of human nature, whether they are cashiers or waiters at a restaurant. the way a person interacts with individuals at a grocery store or with a coworker who holds less authority in the corporate hierarchy is revealing. I learned from experience that people with less authority often reveal a lot about themselves. At first glance, the person I used to work with seemed like the most amiable individual, although they appeared charming, humorous, and courteous in meetings. At all times, I noticed a different side of them right away when we went out to lunch. They were impolite to the waiter, was giving commands as if they were kings and queens, and the waiter was beneath them. It was startling how quickly they transitioned from being warm and welcoming to contemptuous and haughty. It was a wake-up call for me, revealing that this behavior was not just a single slip, but rather an exposure of their true nature, which was to be kind only when it benefited them. While they are condescending toward the waiter, they are displaying their actual selves while they believe no one significant is looking. If they dismiss a coworker, they will be condescending to anyone they think is incapable of defending themselves because they hold a junior role, and you know what? That naughty disrespect will appear in other spheres of their lives as well. The person who shows kindness to you, but not to others, is more calculated than kind. Others are more calculated than kind. Consider a situation where people know they can get away with treating others rudely, and there is no societal pressure to be kind. Sadly, that's when their true character emerges via Stoicism. This perspective allows us to observe human behavior objectively, which is one of the best ways to determine a person's integrity. Integrity: it's easy to be nice when there's something to gain, but the opposite is true when there's nothing to lose. I've applied this concept to relationships at work and in friendships, and even dating has become a silent yardstick for me to observe how someone manages the janitor with dignity, whether they show gratitude to the bus driver or show courtesy to a stranger. If they tend to be overly harsh or disdainful, that's a red flag that can't be ignored. And this is where things get even more complicated. How we treat others reflects how we view ourselves as individuals who value everyone, no matter what. People in positions of power are frequently confident in themselves and don't need to denigrate others. However, people who treat others cruelly often do so to compensate for their own insecurities. Arrogance manifests when people trample on those they perceive as inferior, aiming to bolster their fears. Stoicism helps us recognize and avoid certain traits in ourselves. So, if you want to understand a person's true nature, don't be misled by their behavior. Instead, focus on their actions. The best method to see behind the facade and into their hearts is to see how they treat individuals who have nothing to offer. The key to understanding their success lies in examining their past experiences. Present: if you wish to really comprehend someone, examine their past in great detail. People frequently claim that the past is behind them, but in reality, it's still influencing us. Everything that makes them who they are now, whether they know it or not, including their triumphs, traumas, and relationships, will have an impact on their thoughts, actions, and even how they treat you. In this can be contentious. In the present, since it suggests that individuals don't simply move on, they carry their past with them, which occasionally serves as a guide for their behavior. I've had a friend who always appeared tense in every circumstance and was quite protective. I first believed that being easily enraged and being very cautious in relationships was simply a portion of their character, but as I got to know them more, I discovered in the past they had been severely deceived by those they trusted. They faced financial difficulties and were raised in an environment where they were always expected to prove themselves. As the puzzle started to come together, it became clear that their defensiveness was a direct result of their past experiences. Their past experiences left them with scars, as they felt compelled to defend themselves against future harm. There are times when people use their scars as an excuse for their actions. A person who experienced neglect as a child might yearn for ongoing attention as an adult. Those individuals who have experienced business partner burnout may now be suspicious of anyone who tries to collaborate with them. The important thing here and to rationalize people's actions while acknowledging that they aren't always acting out of the moment. They're responding to memories of their history. Stoicism instructs us to examine, accepting people for who they are without passing judgment, and being aware of their past is a component of seeing them clearly. I've also witnessed this occur in love partnerships. Have you ever dated someone who initially looks fine but later exhibits certain behaviors? For example, they may struggle with commitment or exhibit excessive jealousy. Often, if you look closely enough, you'll discover that their previous relationships have ended. They have wounds from which they haven't entirely recovered. Instead, their current behavior is driven by a fear of getting hurt again. When you realize that you don't have to tolerate toxic behaviors, it becomes easier to understand the reasons behind them. It helps you understand the reasons behind their behavior. And here's the harsh reality. People frequently live their lives trapped in cycles of reiterating actions acquired from prior encounters. They seem to be stuck in a loop, repeating the same patterns repeatedly without even recognizing them. That coworker who constantly looks for approval. They're probably reliving a childhood in which they didn't feel worthy. The friend who destroys all relationships is likely reacting to a profound fear of emotions that was caused by previous heartbreak. Their responses, their behaviors, and their choices, it's a mirror reflecting the bits of their past that haven't been resolved. But this is when learning about someone's past becomes even more profound. It not only helps you manage your relationship with them, but it can also help them end these cycles. You could help them become more self-aware by gently pointing out the patterns they're repeating. Stoicism demonstrates that people need to finally face what they have been avoiding for years. Self-analysis, progress, and occasionally knowledge of one's own past enable you to help them improve themselves. It's simple to pass judgment on others. This judgment is based on their current behavior, but understanding the causes requires looking at the past behind such acts. When you begin to interpret people's actions as reactions to their past, you can approach them more sympathetically while avoiding becoming entangled in their issues. To put it succinctly, unresolved issues are always present. To fully comprehend, you need to view the whole picture of someone, not just the chapter they're in right now. Living for abrupt tone signal shifts, or a sudden change in someone's hesitancy is one of the clearest signs that they are lying or concealing something. Although most individuals are unaware of it, our voices frequently reveal what's occurring beneath a confident speaker's face. Their tone is typically stable, their pace even. Avant speech flows effortlessly, but things change when they lie or hesitate. It seems as though their subconscious is attempting to throw up red, in subtle ways at times and in dramatic ways at others. Flags in the hopes that you'll notice. I once collaborated with a colleague who possessed a skillful use of language. He consistently conveyed his messages with charm and precision, yet during a conversation about a project deadline, his tone changed. His normally confident and cheery demeanor abruptly changed, and his speech became slower. I almost stammer. He suddenly erupted in anger after making a minor change to one of his projects, and I was taken aback by his outburst and was just trying to hide that the tone change was vital. His speech clearly indicated that he was not conveying the full truth. Here's why. This condition occurs when someone lies or says something that makes them uncomfortable. Their body and mind clash, with the brain attempting to conceal their uncertainty or uphold the lie. But particularly, their voice carries the tension that their body may be expressing. Signs of tension in their voice include a crack, a higher pitch, or an unusually long pause, suggesting that their tone does not align with their words. Consider, what did the person's voice sound like the last time you caught them lying? Abruptly become quieter, or perhaps they began talking more quickly. Perhaps they sounded forcefully joyful, as if they were making an effort to appear normal. These are all indications that the change in tone is a subconscious method of saying that something is wrong. Discomfort can arise either from lying to conceal something or from a lack of self-awareness. It is not solely about identifying falsehoods. as abrupt tone shifts also signify hesitancy or doubt. I had an acquaintance who would become really excited about plans, but as soon as I suggested doing something she wasn't very interested in, her tone turned. She would abruptly shift from being exuberant to monotonous as if someone had flicked a switch that, despite what she said, was always my indicator that she wasn't totally on board. Otherwise, this phenomenon occurs in commercial transactions, relationships, and even you've probably had informal chats where someone was abrupt. Even when their comments don't reflect the situation, they shift from being cheerful and amiable to defensive or evasive. Shift. It's in those times when you have to start focusing on what they're saying, but the way they express it, there's a sharp decline in vitality and a change in a pitch or pause that wasn't previously present, maybe an unconscious indication that the larger Stoic lesson here is that individuals frequently lie or withhold something significant. When their tone shifts, it's not only because they're trying to fool others, but also to deceive themselves. When someone tries to control you, it's usually because they don't like the lie they're telling themselves. Unbeknownst to them, their discomfort reveals itself in their speech. This episode is an excellent illustration of the ability to watch without passing judgment that Stoicism teaches us. This section explains how to apply that power of observation by noticing the small changes. You can tell more about someone's emotional conflict by listening to their tone. It's also important to note that we often overlook our feelings. How many times have you uttered something that you didn't truly believe? Do this to yourself. I observed that when you speak, your tone becomes a reflection of your inner doubt, which is why Stoicism stresses the significance of thinking in unison. When words and actions are out of sync, it frequently manifests in ways that are impossible to control. So the next time you're speaking with someone and you observe an abrupt change in tone, whether it's a sudden loss in enthusiasm, an odd pause, or a change in pitch, you might not understand what they're keeping back or what's making them uncomfortable. For instance, when a relationship first starts, both parties typically behave in ways that are intended to win each other over. However, to truly understand someone, watch them during their quiet moments, the times when they're not actively attempting to get your approval, how they handle the waitress when you're dining with them, and what kind of person they are. Are they still being courteous, patient, and respectful when they're under stress or when they believe you're not paying attention? Or do they lower their defenses and do something less flattering? I've witnessed this happen in social situations. You might have a friend who consistently cracks jokes and exudes charisma. They crack jokes and seek attention, but only when they think no one is watching. During significant public events, they may appear distant, self-centered, or contemptuous, but their true nature remains hidden. However, the Stoic viewpoint enters the picture in the smaller, concealed ones. Like a Stoic learns to observe the world objectively and refrain from judging others. You can see their true character when they think no one is watching. We learn from Stoicism that morality is not about our behavior while others are observing it. How do we act when there is no one left who is patient and kind, and courteous even when no one is around to commend them? Someone who embodies Stoic principles, but in actuality, people don't compartmentalize their public and private selves. They behave in ways that enhance their public personas while allowing their least desirable characteristics. In private, I had a coworker who was always so kind and encouraging. He always had something good to say when we were in a group meeting and would go above and beyond to offer assistance. Yet his behavior, when we were by ourselves, had changed. He was short, contemptuous, and uninterested in helping unless it directly helped him, which is how I came to understand that his public persona is inauthentic when no one is watching, not when they're in the spotlight, observing whether they're behaving kindly or cruelly. These unprotected you can only know someone when they reveal the truth. When other people are around, the kindness displayed is often a performance rather than genuine, which reflects the essence of deep Stoicism. Message: we find genuine character not in the spotlight but in the shadows. Stoicism encourages us to constantly strive to live in accordance with our principles. Regardless of the audience, a Stoic demeanor remains unwavering. Stoic principles are reliable because they originate from within rather than relying on external validation. Affirmation. Seeing people in their vulnerable moments not only allows you to see the truth, but it also serves as a reminder. The next time you want to remind yourself of the value of living a genuine life, even when no one else is present, genuinely understand someone. Don't concentrate on their ostentatious displays or public persona. As an alternative, observe what they do. When the spotlight is off, the reality lies in their true character, which you will discover. 6. Emotional reactions reveal a person's priorities. If you wish to understand them, examine how someone responds emotionally in different situations to determine what matters most to them. Emotional responses to circumstances are like an uncensored window into a person's soul. They reveal their beliefs, priorities, and treasured possessions. Since many of us like to believe that the idea of having control over our emotions may be contentious, occasionally we conceal our true feelings, but the reality is that when someone responds intensely, regardless of whether it's joy, rage, or even anxiety, it's an obvious indication that something that is critical to them is connected to their emotional reaction. I'll give you a personal example. I used to work with a coworker who was always composed and serene, appeared to bother him, but one day at a regular meeting, someone proposed that he suddenly erupted in anger after making a minor change to one of his projects, and I was taken aback by his outburst. It wasn't a significant shift, and it wasn't anything you would anticipate. This reaction was unexpected and powerful, reflecting his emotional state. The emotional reaction was more about the many hours they had devoted to this project than about the change itself. The change itself was the focal point of the emotional reaction. He changed himself, and for him, the emotional outburst was more than simply a job. It was personal, shown the significance of that endeavor to him. Although he had never said, as previously stated, people don't always express to you what is most important to them verbally, but they are unable to conceal their feelings, and the boss becomes irate when you challenge his choice, which goes beyond merely preserving his power. The friend becomes very defensive when you point out that his sense of self-worth depends on always being right. Anything minor, most likely as a result of what you said, tapping into a deep insecurity or a value they cherish. The joy someone displays upon receiving praise them for a job well done. They want attention, but won't admit it. These are the main people's most intense emotional responses, whether they are favorable or negative. They display their true objectives. They may appear calm and unattached or generally unconcerned, but when something they value is in danger, when someone questions or acknowledges their feelings, it's not just about them. Restricted to negative responses, such as rage or frustration, even though frequent live, most evident part is that it's also about the things that make them cheerful, light them up, or energize them. When someone is excited about their hobby or side business, it's because it's more important to them, more than you may know. This idea is particularly effective in partnerships. If you're dating someone and you observe that they become overly irritated when plans don't work out, that's a clue that they place a high value on spending time together. When they are happy, every time you discuss a planned trip or activity, it suggests that building shared experiences is important. We always connect emotions to values and pay attention to experiences. You may clearly see someone's priorities by paying attention to their emotional clues without them ever having to clearly. One instance of this is when someone becomes surprisingly defensive. Let's assume you mention in passing that someone has been late a few times, and rather than receiving a composed acknowledgement, they become agitated and defensive because the tardiness is the only reason for the reaction. They take a superficial pride in being punctual and in creating the impression of trustworthiness. Their emotional outburst, which they don't want to display, reflects the significance of that part of their identity. They fight to maintain their Stoic self-image, fearing that others will view them as untrustworthy. This perspective teaches us to view human behavior objectively and recognize that feelings are one of the most obvious signs of a person's emotional outbursts. You can use this information to better understand the people in your life, especially when something they value is at stake. You can control your own interactions with people. If you are aware of what makes them feel a certain way, you can approach delicate subjects with greater caution or use that understanding to create more robust relationships. But the more profound Stoic lesson is that your feelings also reveal your own priorities. When you find yourself having a strong reaction to something, stop and consider why, as it truly matters. Are you allowing your pride to interfere? Or are you becoming irate because someone is questioning your reputation or integrity? Stoicism tells us that by becoming aware of our emotional responses, we can better regulate them and identify when our values that are actually important are linked to emotions, and when they are merely a reflection of our pride or being able to read people and magic. It just requires paying attention. Their body language, mannerisms, and the subtle cues they give off about their feelings reveal a lot about who they really are. Stoicism provides you the advantage in terms of goals, values, and priorities, hereby instructing you to look without passing judgment until you are able to see past the surface and become aware of the true, spoken truths that you discover in every social communication. But this ability isn't only about getting an edge. It's also about understanding. You gain a deeper understanding of yourself, including what influences your feelings and values, as well as how observing others can assist you in living in alignment with those values. Sincerely and sensibly, you improve your life navigation and develop into a more self-aware and reflective individual, which is your true ability to use this understanding for wisdom and personal development rather than manipulation. Now you see it, don't you? You can recognize the subtle indicators, such as the fake smiles, the forced laughter, and the guarded tone. It's all there, concealed in obvious ways. And now, you have the tools to see it for what it is. But here's the catch. Once you start seeing people for who they really are, you'll start seeing yourself too. That's the Stoic path, not just reading others, but mastering your reactions. So next time someone says, "I'm fine," and their voice trembles, listen, watch, understand, because in a world full of masks, the real power is having the clarity to see through them calmly, quietly, and with purpose. If this experience changed how you see people, imagine what's coming next. Subscribe. We're just getting started.